Okay, well, welcome today. I'm Leo and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're hearkening from. We start this off with the third step prayer.
Which is on page 63 of your big book. I hope everybody's got their big book close and can follow along. I'm Rob K., recovered alcoholic. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Okay, we are on page 79. I'm going to go ahead and back up one paragraph, Rob. So we'll do the although these reparations. So near the top.
You got it. Page 79, everybody. First paragraph. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any length to find a spiritual experience, we ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything.
Well, this is one of those very important points that we want to make. The reparations taking innumerable forms. I think that we've talked about that as well. It's not just reaching out and saying, I'm sorry. There's a lot of other things that come first and ahead of an apology. If in fact that's what is expected or asked for. At the same time, reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths. Remember, we're talking about putting in the real work that's necessary in order to achieve real sobriety and recovery. And when we talk about no matter the personal consequences, obviously we've got some qualifiers in there. We certainly don't want something that's going to cause harm in any way, shape, or form. We also don't want to do anything that reveals something that might be illegal or outside of the realm of what's acceptable. And with that, we've suggested and advised that you get legal assistance before doing something of that nature. But nonetheless, going to any lengths is really just putting in the real work that's necessary in order to achieve real sobriety and a solid recovery. And it's a very, very honest, open, and forthright position to be in, and one, as we've always said, is fearless. Rob?
Yeah, remember, it's a spiritual experience is what we're trying to get to bring about recovery. And here's a must. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. So we are willing, whatever the consequences may be. Usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be the hasty and foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. A man we know had remarried. Because of resentment and drinking, he had not paid alimony to his first wife. She was furious. She went to court and got an order for his arrest. He had commenced our way of life, had secured a position, and was getting his head above water. It would have been impressive heroics if he had walked up to the judge and said, "Here I am."
Yeah, and we're moving into a situation here where jumping headstrong into this without forethought, without consideration, and without really looking at the potential pitfalls or consequences, could find yourself in some real trouble. So we'll keep reading on, Rob, and kind of let this one unfold a little bit and talk about it as we go.
Perfectly. We thought he ought to be willing to do that if necessary. But if he were in jail, he could provide nothing for either family. We suggested he write his first wife, admitting his faults and asking forgiveness. He did, and also sent a small amount of money. He told her what he would try to do in the future. He said he was perfectly willing to go to jail if she insisted. Of course, she did not, and the whole situation has long since been adjusted.
Yeah, and as far as the courts are concerned, they don't want to put you in jail either, because the very thing that we just talked about, in that it would provide nothing for either family, creates more problems than it's worth. And if there are several family members involved, especially children, or those that are in need, it is important to be able to provide. So I think in terms of this, everybody kind of likes to work out payment plans, and a very positive progression of getting things fixed and taken care of. Whereas if you just jumped into this and said, here I am, somebody might be not thinking in terms of the big picture, and focused on just the punishment. And the punishment in this case could actually hurt and punish others as well. Rob?
Yeah, and when you're talking about alimony, or you're talking about money that is owed to another person, a lot of times, they're just happy to get anything with whatever they can, because you know what, no, they haven't received anything so far, so anything is better than nothing. And it's showing that you're trying to do something about it. And that's what it's all about. We're trying to change the way we were doing things before. Instead of thinking about ourselves all the time, we're thinking about how we can help others. Hey, top of page 80, everybody. Before taking drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission and have consulted with others, ask God to help, and the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink.
Yes, and so now we're kind of moving into other territory, and that is that again, let's take the going to jail, for example. If you don't work it out with your the family that you're with currently, you could find yourself putting them in dire straits. And you want to make sure that you have consulted with them, and not only with them, but with professionals, legal counsel, maybe even clergy, and then sat back and really reached out to your higher power and prayed and thought about it long and hard, and making sure that you have a good plan of action in place in order to do what's necessary, and to really help all that are involved going forward. Rob?
Yeah, now we're going to come to a good story. This brings to mind a story about one of our friends. While drinking, he accepted a sum of money from a bitterly hated business rival, giving him no receipt for it. He subsequently denied having received the money and used the incident as a basis for discrediting the man. He thus used his own wrongdoing as a means of destroying the reputation of another. In fact, his rival was ruined. He felt that he had done a wrong he could not possibly make right. If he opened that old affair, he was afraid it would destroy the reputation of his partner, disgrace his family, and take away his means of livelihood. What right had he to involve those dependent upon him? How could he possibly make a public statement exonerating his rival? After consulting his wife and partner, he came to the conclusion that it was better to take those risks than to stand before his creator guilty of such ruinous slander. He saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands, or he would soon start drinking again, and all would be lost anyhow. He attended church for the first time in many years. After the sermon, he quietly got up and made an explanation. His action met widespread approval, and today he is one of the most trusted citizens of his town. This all happened years ago.
Okay, so look at how this is unfolding. First of all, a wrong was done, and we found that we had harmed others, and through that we had also created some resentments, and through our conduct we had discredited another person and essentially ruined them. Talking about it with the right people, going about it methodically and thoughtfully, they basically found that this person is willing to come forward, make amends, try their best, and whatever happens, happens, but there is at least permission from those around, consent from those around, advice from those around, and in the end, this stepping forward is created a solid foundation for this person to build on, and certainly they did, and certainly positive feelings came out of it, and as they said here, his actions were met with widespread approval, and today he is one of the most trusted citizens of his town. Now, I say all of this to say that this is how you want things to work out. So take it to heart that you can face some of the most difficult problems that you've created because of your alcoholism, etc., and still come out of it with something very, very positive. In fact, so positive that I can only imagine the confidence and the good feeling that was had by this person being able to be open, being honest, and being fearless with regard to making those amends and trying to right and correct things. Bob?
Yeah. Now, I was reading Writing the Big Book, and they believe that Bill brought this story over from the Oxford group when he was with them at this time. Liz, it's great to have you here. We're on page 80 of the Big Book. I hope you got your Big Book handy. Okay, and we're at the second or third paragraph. After I'm sorry, we're at the bottom of the page 80.
Yep.
The chances are that we have domestic trouble. Perhaps we are mixed up with women in a fashion we wouldn't care to have advertised. We doubt if in this respect, alcoholics are fundamentally much worse than other people. But drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. After a few years with an alcoholic, a wife gets worn out, resentful, and uncommunicative. How could she be anything else? The husband begins to feel lonely, sorry for himself. He commences to look around in the nightclubs or their equivalent for something besides liquor. Perhaps he is having a secret and exciting affair with the girl who understands. In fairness, we must say that she may understand, but what are we going to do about a thing like that? A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times, especially if he is married to a loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for him.
Yeah, so we're in that kind of territory that gets really uncomfortable. And I say this to say that obviously the person that we're talking about is in the wrong kind of relationships, is damaging the right kind of relationship. In fact, is not being very honest or loyal to either, if you kind of look at it that way. It is this potential of really hurting a lot of people here is the risk that this person is taking. So we're going to read a little bit more and learn a little bit more, but the bottom line is that this is really just trying to identify with certain scenarios, and this being one of them, being one of the forefronts with regard to unhappy relationships, unhappy marriages, that type of thing, as a result of and with contribution from alcoholism. Obviously, after a period of time of living with an alcoholic, anybody would get worn out and disenfranchised and non-communicative because they just are tired of being hurt. And they pull away. And that pulling away, the other person thinks it's that person's fault when it's really the alcoholic that is causing the problems. It is something that needs to be identified, and the alcoholic really has to be honest with themselves and coming to terms with what they've caused and their part in this. And in this case, it's probably a major part of it that's gone wrong. Rob?
Whatever the situation, we usually have to do something about it. If we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, should we tell her in detail? Undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. She may insist on knowing all the particulars. She will want to know who the woman is and where she is. We feel we ought to say to her that we have no right to involve another person. We are sorry for what we have done, and God willing, it shall not be repeated. More than that, we cannot do. We have no right to go further. Though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, we have often found this the best course to take.
Yes. First, do no harm, I think, is really what I would try to say here. It's inevitable that there is going to be some hurt and some harm depending on the situation. I think it's going to be different for everyone. So putting down a hard and fast in any capacity here is really unfounded. And I would just say that being open and honest, again, to do no harm is where we want to be, but being open and honest, obviously. But in this, we've got to really try to maneuver this so that you minimize the impact from a negative standpoint in any direction whatsoever. Rod?
Our design for living is not a one-way street. It is as good for the wife as for the husband. If we can forget, so can she. It is better, however, that one does not needlessly name a person upon whom she can vent jealousy.
Right. And this isn't this isn't a retaliation. It's not meant to be that way. If it gets to that point, then, a lot more discussion really should ensue. I would just say that this is, again, really in some of those, in that area that is just uncomfortable for everyone. It's awkward, even if it's working well at best. And it is something that needs to be addressed. Certainly living two lives like that is not necessarily sustainable by any stretch. And especially if somebody is getting sober, going through the steps of recovery and trying really hard to do the right thing and be of service to others, they've really got to figure this one out. They can't leave this stone unturned. They are at least going to have to address it. It's just to the degree at which they're going to actually address it is what's important, and really takes some soul searching, and even to the point of some consultation with some other people that might be that have everyone's best interest in mind. Rob?
Yeah, we're on page 82, everybody. Perhaps there are some cases where the utmost frankness is demanded. No outsider can appraise such an intimate situation. And maybe that both will decide that the way of good sense and loving kindness is to let bygones be bygones. Each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Keep it always in sight that we are dealing with that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. Good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than face-to-face combat.
Yeah. Again, this situation dependent. Everybody's going to be different. It is going to take some good sense and loving kindness. Hopefully it is let bygones be bygones, but if not, then I think it's something that needs to be proactively addressed, and one where you give the aggrieved person some latitude in order to be grieved. So patience and time and honesty is and some kindness and some empathy are going to be ingredients that are going to be necessary for this to be successful. Rob?
Yeah, remember on page 74 is that the rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but considerate always of other people. Well, please remember that. If we have no such complication, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patient mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead.
Yeah, there's a lot of heroes out there that actually can look back and especially when the alcoholic is sober and is well on their way to recovery and or recovered, it's good reflection from time to time to look back on things and remind ourselves, because remember, we don't remember, of some of the things that we did, and remind ourselves that we caused the ill feelings and the problems, and try to exhibit a high level of patience, understanding, empathy, and kindness. Again, just repeating what we have just talked about. there is a lot of things that have to happen. And I can tell you from personal experience that, I wanted to be that 2-week wonder where I got sober after 2 weeks and I wanted everybody to forgive me and forget about all of the problems and the issues and the challenges that I enforced on other people. There was and still are some underpinnings of problems that just every once in a while raise their ugly head, and I need to step back for a second, pause, and think about it, and understand that I caused the problem, and that maybe it's just a trigger. Maybe I said something, maybe I did something, maybe some scenario has kind of unfolded where it's repeated itself, and it's just reminded the other person of a bad time in the past, and they're just affected by it, hopefully temporarily, most likely temporarily. A lot of patience at that point, and a lot of latitude should be given to those people to be able to express themselves in a safe environment, and hopefully it is handled in a positive manner. And I think doing that, my personal opinion is you're going to find yourself in a much better situation where it's going to resolve itself much quicker than if you try to resist it, you try to deny it, you try to put it off, and or make the other person feel like that they're being overbearing in any way or fashion. So remember, you are the one that most likely caused the problem, and because somebody is at a point where they are bringing it up, just remember that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to work through it, and hopefully things will get better. Well,
Leo, I look at, we've read Bill's story and all the shenanigans. I'm going to say shenanigans. What else can you say that Bill got up to? And you think of Dr. Bob's nightmare and all the stuff that Dr. Bob went through, but their wives were incredible. The stuff that Lois had to put up with, and the stuff that Anne had to put up with. Hank Parkhurst, who is, without him, the book wouldn't have been even written, married 4 times. He didn't stay sober, but I just think of Lois, whose picture is behind me, is a saint of a woman. Her and Anne, as I say, what they put up with, thank God for those women, because if not for them, most likely Dr. Bob and Bill would not have lived to stay sober and to have created this fellowship and program. The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring its way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead. Affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand? The wind stopped blowing."
Now, one of my favorite paragraphs basically is a description of how alcoholics react to turmoil and problems. And I think it's important that we kind of sit back and we feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. Obviously that's one of the main drivers we're going after, is no longer drinking. What we want to define, though, is the difference between somebody that's just sober, which I would also characterize as potentially as a dry drunk. They haven't embraced the program. They haven't basically gone through the steps, and they haven't had that spiritual experience, relied on their higher power, and essentially gone through and become a service to others. And when you kind of put those elements into it, you kind of see the difference between somebody that's just sober and somebody that's truly recovered. There is a difference between the two, in my opinion, and I think that that's a good distinction here, and a good way of descripting, a good descriptive way of showing it. Huh?
Yeah, when I first came into the fellowship, I thought that I didn't owe anybody an amends because I never hurt anybody other than myself. Selfish and self-centered to the core. I only thought of myself, right? And that's the whole thing is that we have to be rid of that selfishness. We have to be rid of it, or it'll kill us. In this book, it does not never mentions living amends. A lot of people will say, "Well, I'm living amends. I'm doing the right thing." Well, you know what? When we become God conscious, okay, or we start living in God's world, okay, we're doing what God wants us to do. We're doing what we are supposed to do. We're supposed to take care of our family. We're supposed to take care of our kids. Okay, it's not an amend. Okay, and you hear people talk about it all the time. Is that I'm just living a good life, and that's my amends. No, we have to face people face to face that we owe amends to. Okay, and that's so important because that's part of this program. Okay, and that's where a lot of people fail. They think, well, I don't know, I don't have to make an amends to them. Okay, speak to God. Page 83, top of page 83, everybody. Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fit the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love.
An important point here, and that is that you start at the home, or at least put an emphasis on that, because obviously these are the folks that you probably hurt the most and for the longest. They certainly are probably the first ones you lashed out at and continue to lash out at. They're also going to be the people that are going to be closest to you and nearest you for the long haul. Couple of things to note here. One is that this is a long period of construction ahead. Patience is a virtue here. You've got to realize that sometimes this can take several months to a few years at a minimum in some cases in order to mend fences. It's amazing at how much damage that we can incur on others. And we also need to understand that a remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill. Here's three things that you should be thinking about when you approach a group, a person, or the idea of what you can do to make amends. It's first and foremost, you want to ask, are there any more harms I'm unaware of? You're essentially talking about certain scenario. You may be aware of one thing, but you may not be aware of there may be one or two other things that this person wants to bring up. So give them an opportunity to talk. First and foremost, are there any more harms I'm unaware of? Number two, do you need to tell me how this hurt you? And again, sometimes people just want to share with you what it was you did and what impact it had on them. And that in and of itself is just is very cleansing, and it's very healing. The ability to listen is very important. And then three, is there anything I can do to fix it? Remember, so note what I didn't say. Say I'm sorry and then say this, or say I'm sorry and think that that's enough. Is there anything I can do to fix it? Now, that would be also, that is legal and appropriate, because if they ask you to do something that's inappropriate or illegal, then obviously that's not a good place to be, and not a thing to get you there. So those three items should be in your discussion when you're making an amend or amends, and when you're talking to certain folks about what's going on and how to go about it. Remember, don't criticize. Your own actions are at least partly responsible, if not wholly. And patience, tolerance, kindness, and love is an incredibly important traits to have in these discussions and these dealings. Rob?
Yeah, remember, an amends is restitution, to put things back the way they were, correct the mistake, to put right, righting a wrong. Saying sorry is not an amends. That's an apology. Okay. I'm going to use Bill's story right now is that I'm driving down the road. For some reason, I lose my train of thought. I take out your fence. I go up to your door and knock on the door and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I took down your fence. That is an apology. An amends, I have to put that fence back to the way it was before I hit it. That means I either have to pay somebody to do it or I fix it myself. That is an amends, putting things back the way they were before. Okay. Bill, thank you so much for that story. I appreciate you, sir. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matter. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone.
Absolutely. And we're talking now in regards to your own spiritual experience. You're living a spiritual life. You want to share it with others, but too much of a good thing is still too much. And you want to be careful about how you approach it. If there is resistance, you can cause resentment and you can cause some retaliation in some manner or fashion, and it will shut down communications because people will not want to be around you. And what you want to do is the opposite, and that's open lines of communication and really get to know what it is that they want and strive to be of service in that manner or fashion. And it does say that, they will change in time. Maybe they don't come around at all, but they do become more accepting of our new way of living, our new way of life. After all, being positive, being of service, being helpful, being kind, attentive, being empathetic, how can you not want somebody around that's like that? So those type of things are going to be more receptive. They're going to be more receptive to those kinds of things. And over time, maybe they want to do what you're doing and adopt that form of living as well. It's not for you to make that decision, and it's really up to them. The last but not least here is just, again, patience. We're talking 10 or 20 years of drunkenness. In my case, it was many more years than that. I went.
You look so young, Leo.
And I know that there are people that are very happy with my sobriety and my recovery right now, but I also know that there's still every once in a while, a little bit of an arm's distance kind of approach to me. And I'm okay with that. I realize that I'm the one that caused that feeling and or that lack of security. So I just try and reinforce that sense of security with them every chance I get. Rob?
We can tell people how much we've changed. Okay, all we want. But until they see it, that's when it will convince them. So we live a God-conscious life. We do what God will want us to do. People will notice the change in us. They will, but it will take time. And there are going to be people that are skeptical of it, saying, oh, he's just acting this way right now. He hasn't really changed. He's just acting this way. People are reluctant. Okay. 10 or 20 years of heavy drinking, of us lying to people, of only thinking of ourselves. Time takes time. We have to be patient. Patience, tolerance, understanding, and love. Those are the watchwords. I say those words constantly. When somebody cuts me off in traffic, patience, tolerance, understanding, and love. In the grocery store, when somebody picks up the last item that I was just going to reach for, patience, tolerance, understanding, and love. Mm-hmm. It wasn't meant for me. So, you know what? So be it. But, instead of me thinking about myself all the time, we're thinking of other people. It's a whole new way of life. Okay. And it takes time for people to notice the change in us. There may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. You send them an honest letter. and there may be a vital reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our own feet. We don't crawl before anyone.
Absolutely. And reminded just to say that if at all you are worried and or not quite sure how to approach something, this particular paragraph into action, I'm sorry, paragraph, this chapter into action is a perfect review and one you should refer back to on a time and again basis. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we might not be able to fully write. Maybe the person's no longer with us and you're not able to make an amend to that person. Again, this is one where you basically would sit down, you would think about it, you would talk to your higher power and honestly say to yourselves and maybe another person that you would write them if you could. Maybe you caused a car accident, you were drunk driving and you took the ability away from somebody their ability to walk. So they're in a wheelchair. Now, certainly there's no way you can give them back the gift of walking again, but a situation in that regard, and this is kind of more applicable here where you would basically be tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. Go to that person and talk to them if they're willing to talk with you. Maybe they're still hurting. Maybe there's still a lot of hard feelings, and maybe they'll never forgive you. But if you are willing to try, you actually try, you're honest about it, you're caring and humble, you did your best. And I mean, you actually did your best. That in and of itself will give you some relief, and you should look at that as doing the best you can and being of trying to right a wrong. So bottom line is you really have to take a look at the situation. If you can make the right, great. If you can't and you do your best at it, then do all you can to be satisfied with that and continue to move forward, because we don't want to get bogged down or paralyzed by not being able to write something when we can't access a person, or we can't, or to do so, there's still a lot of hard feelings. All right, Rob?
Yeah, on page 76, it's we attempt to sweep away the wreckage of our past. And that's what it's all about. We're trying to rectify things from the past, so we can move forward with our life. And what a life it is. I put in the chat, one thing I love about the big book is it never asks us what we think. And it never leaves us hanging. It always gives us the answer. How do we make amends to these people? Well, it talks about how to make amends to an enemy, a creditor, a criminal, an alimony, business, domestic, family, and people we cannot see. Okay, all the page numbers are there, but this is what I love about the big book. It doesn't ask me my opinion or your opinion. It tells us and helps us guide us through how we can do all these things. Now we're going to read the promises, which are the opposite of the bedevilments, which were on 52. 30 pages later, we're going to get into promises. So if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellow. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
There you go. Okay, thank you, Rob. That's excellent. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. And we are talking about our step 9 in making amends. We are talking about the step 9 promises, and Rob just went through those in this paragraph, and there's quite a few of them here. And this is reinforcing your relationship with your higher power. That's probably the most important relationship that you can, one, find, then foster and develop, and then maintain over the rest of your life. Rob just put the promises in the chat, so if you'd like to review those as we're talking, the promises in that paragraph are right there. Another thing that I want to make sure that we're kind of aware of, and there's always this, when do we do our step 9? And it's not necessarily, just because it's after step 8, doesn't mean that it's right then and there. I have heard from a wise person, Tony, out of the Keystone Group, that the time to be doing your step 9 is when you are at the point of doing your step 11. Okay, so think about this. You're going to connect the two. You ask how best to conduct your day in the beginning, the morning meditation, and that should answer to you a particular amend that you want to make, or amends that you're going to be making. But you ask for that guidance from your higher power. You may find that you need to consult with somebody, and that is part of your morning meditation. Hey, I need to talk to so-and-so before I actually approach so-and-so, making sure that I've covered my bases. The next thing you know is that you review your day that night and how your amends went, and how you might have learned good or bad, and how to learn from those amends and your actions of that day, and then you start it all over the next day. So really the point in time to start your step 9 is when you're at the point of doing your step 11, and really talking and to your higher power, and having a strong relationship with your higher power. All right, fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. I think that this is an important one, because we're afraid of what somebody might say to us, they might do to us. We're embarrassed by things, and I think that this is an important part in time where you want to get that confidence that you need, the honesty that you need, and that fearlessness that you need. And the more amends you make, the stronger you get. I can promise you that happens. The more amends you make, the stronger you get. And going forward, you just get better and better at doing these amends, and you get happier and happier, and things start working themselves out for you. And colors are brighter, the sun's a little brighter. It's just it's an amazing thing to kind of go through that. And you realize that that relationship that you have with your higher power is really strong, and that's what it truly means to have that relationship with your higher power, is listening to your higher power and taking the guidance that you get from those quiet moments of meditation and reflection. Rob?
This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code.
Yeah, so here's a great exercise. It is one where we talk about this. If you do a step 4 and then a step 5, if you did it correctly, And if you embrace the steps and recover fully, you should never have to do another step 4 or 5, unless you just feel it necessary to just do a review and kind of a catch up. But honestly, you shouldn't have to. And the reason why is the explanation that was in this paragraph, which covers all of the steps, as a matter of fact, in this paragraph. But it basically is that you write any new mistakes as you go along. So if you've hurt somebody, just immediately stop, pause, think about it, correct it, and then do it right then. Do it now. And if you do it now, just like Rob is indicating, then you don't have to go back and do another step 4 and ultimately a step 5. And it also minimizes the growing list, if you will, if you were to just start jotting things down again on a step 8 and step 9. Point being is that you are immediately dealing with the situation, and by in doing so, eliminate the need to go back and review and do previous steps, and you reinforce it with your step 11 by morning meditations and nightly reflections. And then if you live your life in service to others with that in mind, you will find that more than half of all mistakes you made are already taken care of the very moment that they've been caused, or at least they're shortly after, as we go along. All right. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Okay. Those are natural things that happen in any human. It is part of the human condition, but watch out for them. If you feel yourself kind of going down those paths, stop for a moment, think about it, pray, and really start to embrace this more of living in an open and honest approach to this type of thing. And what you'll find is that over a lifetime, you will be remembered for many great things as opposed to many bad things. Rob?
Yeah, if we were honest doing our step 5, we got rid of all the old resentments. Now, we learned the spiritual kit of tools has taught us how to master resentment, so we don't have any more resentments going forward, which is the sick man prayer. We look at people as sick people. They too were spiritually sick, just like I was. We don't build up resentments anymore with these, or we shouldn't. Okay, so we shouldn't have to do another step 5 unless something has cropped up from the past, and then we speak to somebody right away about it. Okay, we talk to God and to another person and to ourselves. Okay, but as it says right here, this is not an overnight matter. Okay, we're not, we have to continue to grow in the spirit. Okay, so we're going to always be growing. We never are perfect. Okay, we're always trying to get better at all, in God's world. Okay, when things crop up, we ask God to remove them. When do we ask God to remove it? Now. God, take this away so I don't have to feel this way. Take away this fear I'm feeling. Another spiritual tool that we have been given. Okay, God, please take away this envy, this jealousy, this anxiety that I'm feeling right now so that I can enjoy the day. Okay, if I make a mistake, okay, I've hurt your feelings. I apologize. When? Now. I deal with it now. Why? Because that's what God would want me to do. Yeah, I'm not selfish and self-centered anymore. I'm thinking about what is best for the other person. Okay? And that is that, you know what? I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I really didn't. That was not my intention. So I deal with it. That's what step 10 is all about. Dealing with things in the now. Remember, we have step 11. We're at the end of the day, when we go to bed at night, we review our day. Do I have any resentment? Was I selfish? Was I self-seeking? Okay, was I dishonest? Was I full of fear and self-pity? Do I owe an amends to anybody? Is there something I need to speak to somebody else about? We take these things and we go through them through our day, at night and in the morning. In the morning, we're asking God to take self out of the equation so I can do his work. I can be his agent. So, Leo, it is 12:53. Can we bring in Mr. Bill?
We sure can. We've got
Excellent.
a great message starting next week's meeting, so please don't miss out on it. We're entering in a one where there's a lot of question, and we're going to make a big answer. So, Bill.
Hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. A good presentation today. This is a very important part of the book here. It's showing us what we're supposed to do so that we can start to get better, so we can start to change. And what this book was talking about, it's talking about different types of amends that we have to make and different ways to do them and who we have to make amends to and how it should be done. And this is a really, really good time to consult with your sponsor. Because sometimes if you just jump right into making amends without talking to somebody about it, it's a good chance that we can screw everything up, and then you're going to wind up having to make amends for making amends, and then you're going to get all messed up and it's not going to work out right. So it's a real good idea to discuss it with your sponsor or your network or someone who's been through this process before you, so they can give you some advice on how to do it. Because there's going to be some people that we're not supposed to make amends to. Depending on what the situation was, on what happened, if it's going to hurt them or it's going to hurt others, we're not supposed to make amends in that situation. And when it says others, we're not others. We have to take a hit for what we did, and that's that. So we have to discuss it with somebody to find out whether or not we should make amends, or whether we should postpone it or make it in a different way, or however we're going to do it. But it's a good idea that this is one of the parts of this book where you really, really need a sponsor's help. Somebody that understands this process and been through it. Like Leo mentioned, you're not supposed to do anything that's inappropriate or anything that's illegal. If when you were drinking and partying, you stole somebody's cocaine and now you want to make amends for that, and they tell you, go down to the sleazy part of town and buy me some more cocaine and bring it back to me. No, we don't do that kind of stuff. No, but that's illegal. I mean, if you get caught doing that, you're going to get locked up. And then they're going to take the cocaine away from you anyway, and you still didn't make your amends. So if anything, hand the person a wad of money and say, here, this will cover whatever I took from you. Go get it yourself. There's stuff we're not supposed to do. We don't do anything that's illegal or anything that's immoral or anything like that. We're trying to get better here. We're not trying to get worse. And he's given us a whole bunch of suggestions here on what we're supposed to do. And at the end of this, on page 83, he talks about there's some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves, we would right them if we could. There may be some situations where you can't do anything about it. The person may be gone. It may be somebody that you don't know who they were. Maybe you were drunk one night, you pulled out of the parking lot in a bar and you banged into a car and you kept on going and you have no idea whose car it was. Well, you can't go back to the bar now that you're sober and say, did anybody ever have a dent in their car? I want to pay for it. You're going to have 900 people banging on your door the next day. There's just no way that you can really fix that. But as long as you're honestly willing to do it, the guy upstairs knows what's in your heart. And you will get the spiritual benefit out of this step if you're really honestly willing to do it. And that means you're always ready to you're going to hold yourself at the ready to be able to make that. That if it ever comes up and you ever find out who the person was or where they are or whatever, that you're going to make the amends. It's not just a way of getting out of it. But you don't have to go making all kinds of other types of amends to try to fulfill this. I've heard people in these meetings say you're supposed to give money to charity. Well, what did you do wrong to a charity that you have to give them money? You don't make amends to a charity. You make amends to whoever it is that deserves the amends. If you want to give money to a charity, that's your own personal thing, that's fine. If that makes you feel better and gets rid of your guilt and remorse, that's fine. But nowhere in this book does it say to do that. A charity is an outside issue, and AA does not go along with giving anything to any outside issues. We're supposed to stay out of all of that kind of stuff, and we're supposed to take care of ourselves and our amends and whatever we're supposed to do. And that's basically what it's telling us here. And at the end of that paragraph, it says, as God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. When you go out to make amends to someone, you're not there to kiss their feet. You're there to right a wrong that you did. You're there to repair the damage that was done in the past. If they want you to crawl and grovel before them, you just, well, have a nice day, pal. Get out of there. That's not what we were supposed to do. We're there to fix what we did that was wrong, and that's that. If you broke something or you stole something, we're there to pay for it, and you give the money back, whatever. We're not there to grovel at anybody's feet and beg their forgiveness. If they forgive us, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine. As long as the guy upstairs forgives us, that's all we're really supposed to be concerned with. And then they have a bunch of promises here. And these promises, these happen when you are recovered. They're the opposite of the bedevilments. The bedevilments are what happens to us before we are recovered. And the promises are what we get after we're recovered. So by this point, where we've gone through this process, we should be at least entering the beginning stages of being recovered. That's basically what these promises are telling us. Then it moves on into step 10. And I love step 10. I think step 10 is one of the best steps that's in here. All of the steps are mentioned in this page and a half that step 10 is on. It mentions all the different steps. The first paragraph mentions 8 different steps in it. And basically, if you live in step 10, like Rob said, you don't have to go back and do step 4 and step 5 again because you cover them in step 10. It says to continue this. And the only way you can continue taking your personal inventory is if you took your personal inventory in the first place. So you continue doing it. It's basically a mini step 4. That's what step 10 is. Every time we make a mistake, we try to fix it right away. Instead of waiting for a long period of time and then rewriting a whole 4th step and going through this, fix it right then and there. It's easier to fix things right away than to wait and try to fix them all at one time. However you want to do it. If some people want to go back and do their step 4 over and over again, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But step 10 takes care of it. Step 10 is like your safety valve or your safety net. Every time you make a mistake, you catch it in step 10 and you take care of it. How do you take care of it? You ask God to take it away at once. Not wait 6 weeks, not wait 3 years or whatever. It says you ask God to remove it at once. So as soon as you do something that's wrong, as soon as you make a mistake, you ask God to take it away. And if you need to discuss it with somebody, you discuss it with somebody. That would be like a mini step 5. And then you need to make amends quickly if you harmed anybody. It says make amends quickly. In other words, don't sit around and wait. Just do it and get it over with. It's easier to fix things as soon as they happen than it is to wait over and over a period of time before you fix them, because then things start to snowball and people get resentments, and the resentments bounce back and forth this way and that way. And the next thing you know, everybody's getting messed up over the whole thing. It's easier to just fix something as soon as it happens. Oh, did I do that wrong? Oh, my mistake. I'm sorry. Here, let me fix it. What can I do to make it right? That's that. You get rid of it right away. This way, we don't have to aggravate ourselves or aggravate other people that are going to turn around and then re-aggravate us. The reason we're doing this is so that we can be at peace and ease inside. We can have inner peace. That's why we do this. And basically, what Bill's doing, he's just giving us here an example of how to live our life on an easy basis, so we don't have to drink over our whatever it is that's bothering us. When we get rid of our guilt and remorse and we keep that stuff from coming back again, we don't have to pick up a drink to get rid of it. That's basically all this is. Okay, thanks a lot for letting me share. That's all I got.
Thanks so much, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Bill. That was wonderful. Rob, let's go ahead and close out with serenity prayers, please, sir.
I certainly will. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.